Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD Baseball. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my co-host with a new haircut, Keith Glasser. How we doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Hair looks great. Handsome as ever.
Fresh peel.
Today's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts of video creation and maybe even a little bit more specifically about posting said videos on social media. So I'm going to kick it over to you to get some initial thoughts on this particular topic. Maybe we can provide some advice to the listeners out there.
Sure. This came up the other day. There were a handful of videos I came across on Twitter, and these are things obviously that we both have seen over the course of our coaching careers. And I can't really believe that we haven't talked about this yet. But, when it comes to doing some videos and getting them out on Twitter, and we've talked about this a lot, right? Where you can, it's a great platform, and, Twitter and Instagram to be able to kind of reach the masses of coaches with quick clips of what you can potentially do, both from a hitting and pitching standpoint. I'm going to start on the pitching side of things. And, something like, the video is a baseline kind of attention grabber, right? Like coaches are looking at it to be like, all right, like what are his baseline skills? Like, is this something that I would want to pursue? You want to be able to kind of showcase yourself the best way you possibly can in those short little clips. It's not to say that you want to be deceiving, right? Like that's not what I'm going to drive at here. But what I am going to drive at is if you're a pitcher and you're going to post a bullpen on the interwebs or on your recruiting profile and send it to coaches via email and whatever, make sure that your catcher is wearing catcher's gear. Make sure that your catcher has a catcher's mitt. And I'm honestly not trying to put anyone down in this, but like my first thought is when I see a video of you pitching and the catcher may or may not be in high school or in college and maybe older, like if they're not wearing catcher's gear and or not using a catcher's mitt, like I don't think you throw hard enough to pitch in college. That's just a fact. If you're not kind of, people aren't scared to get back there and catch it. Like the likelihood of it being something that is going to be firm enough to be able to go pitch in college right now is pretty slim. And I just think that unless you have Yadier Molina catching you, like get someone with some gear on. And, if they're not afraid to have a cup on, then the likelihood of you throwing hard enough to be able to pitch in college it's not in the cards right now. And you're doing yourself a disservice in posting that because like, I'm not even watching your arm or what you're doing. Like, I'm just looking and being like, this guy doesn't even have gear on or a catcher's mitt. Like, yeah, no, on to the next, and it's just, you're not putting your best foot forward or giving yourself an opportunity to even really be recruited by guys or like to just even pause for a split second longer. Cause it's like, yeah, no, that's every single one of our guys, like, our catchers need gear on to catch every single one of our guys. So that's where I'd start. I saw like 5 of those videos over the course of the last probably 10 days. And I texted you and I was like, we need to have a discussion about this because you're giving yourself a disservice by posting videos like that.
Yeah, I would much rather see you throwing into a 9-square box. Nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm okay with that. Obviously, if you can do it in a little bit of a more formal fashion, that would be great. The one thing I want to touch on is attire, and I noticed that there's a lot of guys, and I don't want to sound like the old school, like I don't know. You see some of these dudes on Twitter that they just
you don't want to be the you crossed him off because his mom brought him a Gatorade guy now.
Yeah, I'm not being that guy.
You're going to be that guy.
No, I'm not going to be that guy because I'm going to give some tips. Don't just look like you're a ball player, right? I'm not saying you have to have pants on and a jersey and your number with your name on the back and cleats on. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that make it look like you showed up with the intent to actually do something. Which for me, a couple things would be put a shirt on. Don't wear a wife beater, or maybe the more politically correct term is the A shirt. Don't wear a tank top. Like, put a t-shirt on, like put a pair of shorts on that fit. It doesn't have to be game attire, but think about what a college baseball player does when he goes to work out. And you see these guys posting videos, you see the professionals posting videos, like, try to look the part. Because whether we want to or not, that's the first thing that coaches notice. So, if you have a chance to wear a pair of shorts that fit well, or a t-shirt that fits well, like, do yourself a favor and try to look the part. That's one thing that bugs me about some of these videos, is that you don't need high production value, but you still want it to look like you gave a shit about what you were putting together. It's probably the simplest way to put it. I don't care too much about editing. Any coach with a reasonable mind, or who's a reasonable evaluator, understands that you're not going to throw a 30 pitch bullpen and not spike a breaking ball or not miss with a fastball. I don't care about the editing, but when you're posting on Twitter, try to grab some stuff that you did well, right? And showcase like the better portion of yourself. And just try to look the part. That's a big thing for me, because we've talked about it a bunch of times on the podcast, and we talk about it with coaches all the time, that the first thing we look at when we get to the field is like, who looks like a ball player. I mean, we had a conversation with a good friend of ours that he probably oversimplified it, but I think what he was really driving at is that if you go to the ballpark and you look for guys that look like the guys who are good for you, you probably are going to find them. Like the guys who look good in a uniform, who wear their uniform the right way, who look like they work out. Like, you want to do yourself a favor and do the best you can to look the part. And I don't think that takes a ton of effort.
No, it doesn't take a lot of effort. I think you hit the nail on the head, but I think you can carry that into hitters videos. Like, I used to get hitters videos. Guys would, like, opening swing, they would swing it, off a front toss and hit a pop fly and then bat flip back to Lord only knows where. But same kind of thing, you want to be prepared, on the same hand, like, you don't really need the super high production value. It doesn't really matter, like, whether you're hitting in a cage or on a field. And specifically, if you're hitting on a field, please, for safety's sake, because I've seen far too many of these videos over the last couple of years, do not go throw BP without an L screen. Like, I've seen videos of people throwing BP without an L screen and getting torched in the chest and in the leg. Like, it's not worth it. Like, don't throw BP without an L screen. Like, go into the cages or do side toss. Literally anything other than putting your life on the line for a video to post on the internet or in your recruiting profiles. But, same kind of thing. Like, the editing part, like, especially in a cage, I never really cared a whole hell of a lot, but, you're going to have, when it jumps back and forth, like, but I don't know how many people are hitting in those sessions. You could have 15 guys, a bit too high, but you could have 3 guys working on the same cage. Like, that's why there's so many balls on the floor. So I think that, like, being able to show the open side, being able to show from behind or behind the pitcher, is fine. You don't need to see on-field BP. And quite frankly, if you're sending me a video of you taking on-field BP, like, I don't even know the dimensions of the field. You can get a little bit more up close and personal in the cage setting, where I can actually garner a lot more information of your swing, because you can get super close and super tight on what's going on. Whereas usually if you're hitting BP on a field, like, someone's standing 20, 30 feet behind to not get hit by the pitcher because you don't have a turtle. And things like that. So I think that, like, the cage is usually your best option. But my PSA for the night, aside from making sure catchers have catcher's gear, if you're throwing BP, parents, dads, brothers, uncles, whoever, please, for the love of everything out there, find an L screen to throw behind. Please do not throw BP without an L screen. You're asking for a lot. You're asking for injury. And I'll be honest with you, when I see it and it happens and I just went dark on video here, like we're all going to send around and be like, look at this. What are we doing here?
Yeah. L screens are like safety first, folks. Being toughs for
safety is no accident, Andrew.
Yeah, that's not it's not about being tough. It's about trying to make sure you can walk the next day. One other quick tip, if you have the capability of doing this, and not everybody does, but there's a lot of technology out there that allows you to wrap some of this stuff into your video. If you can show metrics in your video, huge help. Huge help, because it proves that you're not being hyperbolic with anything that you're placing. It's 100% worth it if you have the ability to overlay TrackMan data or Rapsodo data or even just some basic velocity data. It's very helpful. And from a coach's perspective, it sets the bar of like, oh, okay, like that kid said he's 83 to 86. The velo gun is showing me that he's consistently 85. Like we're probably in a pretty good spot.
Concur.
Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to our video TED Talk. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.